Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. And I would like to welcome back my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
Good. How are you, Link?
We are doing well. The Run Disney registrations for Marathon Weekend was today. If you out there registered, let us know what you registered for. Christy and I both got in for, what is it?
Oh my God. Dopey.
Yes, I will be making my third return to Dopey, and Katie will be making her second round of Dopey, and Christy will be doing her first Dopey.
First Dopey. First and only Dopey. I'm going to finish it, and it will be my Dopey.
It's your third marathon, though, right? Or second?
Second.
Okay.
I have done a marathon, and I definitely thought that was my last marathon, and I figured that out. It was 15 years before... It'll be 15 years in between the two marathons. I am much older, much slower, and that's okay. But you cannot be in Central Florida and watch people run Dopey every weekend and be a runner and not do it. I can't be a part of this Run Disney community and just not do it. So
Influenced.
I was influenced. I guess I've had FOMO. So you're gonna talk me through it and help me get off the ledge that I feel like I'm on.
Well, I'm sure we will circle back to run training many times while recording this podcast here, as well as have many Run Disney rundowns about it. But why don't we turn towards something a little more relaxing and talk some cruising?
Yeah, I think that's a much better idea.
And we would like to welcome back to the show, Lindsay. Lindsay, how are you today?
Hello, I'm doing so well. How are you?
We are doing all right. Excited to talk about your sailing. I know you've been on the show before, but why don't you remind our guests a little bit about your Disney background and your cruise background?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I'm actually a cast member, which we love, but this is actually my 10th cruise. So this was my platinum qualifier. I'm very, very excited. So obviously I've just been immersed in Disney since forever. I started on the Disney College program back in 2011. And believe it or not, that is when I did my first cruise. I don't know what got into me at 19 years old, but my friends and I, my roommates, we just decided to go on the Disney Dream, and it was the inaugural year. We had a blast, and I was bit by the Disney bug, came back, ended up working for the company full time. And then my husband moved to Central Florida with me, and we got married and said, what should we do for a honeymoon? I know, Disney cruise. And then he got bit by the Disney cruise bug, and the rest is kind of history. We had a little hiatus, obviously, with COVID. We broke that hiatus with an Alaskan cruise in 2022, which was thrilling. We've since had 2 kids, and now they come in tow on all of our Disney cruise adventures. And yeah, we're fully hooked. I will say the one ship we haven't been on yet is the Wish, but we're hoping to get there this year. I have my fingers crossed that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like with 2 girls and princesses and just girly things, you guys need to be on the Wish.
I agree. It's just so pretty.
It's so pretty.
I also selfishly just want to go down that darn slide. That's all I want to do. I'll pay the money just to go down the slide.
We love a Disney honeymoon. Katie and I also did a Disney cruise for our honeymoon. Also the first episode I've ever done on the podcast. Many episodes ago. Fun fact.
That's awesome.
But why don't we turn towards what cruise you booked this time?
Yeah, so actually a good segue, speaking about honeymoons, but we booked the 7-night Eastern Caribbean on the Fantasy out of Port Canaveral. Full disclosure, we were looking for Wish cruises. We were like, what do we want to do? And being a cast member, we do get discounted rates. So we had to just sort of wait and see what was going to pop up in terms of, because we only get space available discounts. We don't get a discount for any old cruise we want. And this one popped up, and it felt right because we had not done the Eastern on the Fantasy since our honeymoon. And so this was actually going to be the first family vacation since completing our family and having our 2 kids. And it just felt special to have that be our honeymoon cruise and then our first cruise as a completed family. And we worked very hard for our family. So it was not an easy road to get there. So it was very full circle and very exciting. And it felt right. And we're very glad that we chose that one.
I want to talk about that for just one second. Obviously, that's not what the show's about, but Lindsay, we're going to give you a moment at the end of the show to share your Instagram But for those people who want like somebody to look to, who had a little bit of IVF struggles and just struggles with actually growing their family, your content is amazing. For listeners, we will put her contact information in her Instagram account, but it's Lindsay DiPonzio.
DiPonzio. Yep. DiPonzio.
If you are in that position area of your life, she has great links in her stories where she just talks about the whole process, and it's just really useful. So there you go.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a big part of who we are, right? And it became a big part of our identity. So, and I post very, very openly and did throughout our whole journey. So Disney's also a big part of our identity as well. So it kind of all just ends up tying together.
Well, this cruise leaves out of the beautiful Port Canaveral port. How did you get to the port, and what was your embarkation experience like?
We drove our personal car because we're local, right? But we actually got there a little early. They say not to do that. But we had like big dreams of like, what if there's concierge rooms available? Maybe we will upgrade. We know that of course is also space available. So we're like, let's get there a little on the earlier side and see if we can like finagle our way in just to ask about upgrades. And we were able to do that. Full disclosure, I don't think they let people in normally, but we happened to get somebody at the door that had an earning their ears tag on. And we were like, oh, we're looking for concierge upgrade inquiries. And I think he just heard us say concierge and just sent us through. I want to say we got there like 11:15, but we only waited. I mean, it was a beautiful embarkation experience. Really, really smooth. One of the smoothest I've actually ever had. We were boarding group 9, so we did end up boarding the ship probably around noon, 12:15-ish. And it was a breeze, like so easy. No qualms, 10 out of 10.
And then sadly, no concierge upgrade for you.
Sadly, no concierge upgrade. No, we had a number in mind that we were like, if it's this much, we're going to go for it. And unfortunately, they exceeded our number. And we said, okay, let's not be super financially irresponsible today.
What kind of cabin did we end up staying in for this sailing? And how did that work out for your family then?
We ended up being in a deluxe family ocean view veranda. I think it's a 4B, the longer ones, in the middle. And it was great. We love those deluxe cabins with just that little extra footage on the end. Oh my gosh, it makes a world of a difference, especially when you're using a pack and play, which we do for our youngest because she was only 8 months old. It just makes the whole room feel a little bit less crowded. Rather than having the pack and play like in the middle of the room, there's actually enough space to keep it closer to the window. It really makes such a difference to not feel like you're in super cramped quarters. So no notes on that. Very glad that we did that.
While we're talking about bedding really quick, you were also traveling with your husband and 2.5-year-old. Did your 2.5-year-old sleep on the couch then?
Yeah, so she slept right in like that couch bed, and they put up a little rail, which
perfect.
The rails they don't do much. They take up less than half the bed. But the good news is she, as a 2.5-year-old, sleeps in a big girl bed anyways. So we weren't super concerned about her like rolling off. She's very used to sleeping in a bed. So that worked out just fine.
Well, stepping it back here just a bit, what was it like boarding the Fantasy again after quite a bit of time?
Oh my gosh, it was so nice. There's nothing like that euphoric feeling when they announce your name and you enter the lobby, and it's like all reality goes away. When Walt said like, here you enter, whatever that quote is like about Disneyland, here you enter the world of tomorrow fantasy, and like you leave reality behind. Like there is nothing more true of that quote than when you walk on a Disney cruise ship and hear your name announced. It was spectacular. And I will say that I feel like we often get on the cruise ship with like goals in mind of like, okay, we want to go try to change our dining time, or we didn't get Apollo reservation, so let's go try to do that. And we had nothing on the docket for the afternoon other than to just go enjoy Cabana's lunch, which absolutely hits every single time. There's something about that embarkation lunch too. The menu is just right every time. And we had nothing. The only thing we had to do was stop by the nursery because we planned to put our girls in, and we had them booked several times throughout the itinerary, and we had to just register them. So we did that. Like we went and had lunch. We took our sweet time, went and got them registered. And then by then it was 1:30, 2 o'clock. Rooms were ready, and we were able to go drop off all the carry-ons, and some of our bags were coming in, and it was great. It was really, really great. I will say, in terms of traveling with 2 young kids, the hardest part of embarkation day was naps
Mhm.
because my youngest, she can pretty much nap on the go. She usually does 2 naps a day, but my oldest is generally pretty standard with like a 12 to 2 nap. So we had them both in strollers, hoping that like maybe they would just fall asleep. But I believe the oldest one ended up going napless that day, which became a struggle towards dinner time. But I mean, overall, it's just, you just power through, right? Like you'll probably hear me say this several times throughout our recording tonight, but like the key to traveling with little ones, we learned, was to throw all expectations out the window. Like, when they are that young, you can't plan, you can't expect, you can't set the stakes too high. You just have to like lean in and let go. It took us a few days to learn that on this trip. I was glad we did that the first day in terms of naps, because you just gotta kind of go with it.
Well, right. Your room isn't ready. And then even when it is, there's announcements all the time.
It's loud.
Yeah.
It's overstimulating. Like
Mhm.
there's the muster drill, you know, it was just a lot.
Yeah, really not a lot of quiet places where you could just sit down and relax, because even the pool areas are going to be hustling and bustling on that first day.
Yes. My plan was, if the oldest fell asleep in her stroller, to just walk
Yeah.
the ship and let like the movement of the stroller keep her asleep. And I think that initial day she might have crushed like a 15-minute power nap, but that was it to get her through the whole day.
Did you bring a double stroller or did you bring singles?
We brought singles.
Okay. The ship is very narrow. And then that way you could just have one, because you probably didn't need it all the time for your older
Correct.
child.
Yeah, we figured, so for my oldest, she is very independent and loves to just like run around. So we figured that we probably wouldn't need it on the ship with her necessarily. It would be more if we got off the ship. So we just brought a small umbrella stroller, one that we've brought in the past on other cruises when she was like 1, and that worked out great. We honestly barely had to use that. And then we have a Duna car seat stroller combo for my youngest. And that works great because she just kind of like snoozes in there on the go, and it's comfortable and it's what she's used to. So that worked. We thought about bringing the double stroller, but it's just so bulky to fold. I'm always thinking about the storage space in the stateroom. And that was really the deciding factor in not bringing it, was because like we would have to find a space to put this hunkin' thing. Like even when it's folded up, it just takes up too much space.
And then one more stroller question. When you did the muster drill, were you able to keep the children in their strollers? Did you try
wasn't
to?
Sure about that, to be honest with you, and I didn't want to risk it. So we wore the baby, and then I just walked with my toddler, who got a little anxious, and they say no phones out, but I had like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse on my phone, like with no volume, just letting her watch to keep her still and not wanting to sprint around all of deck 4. So
Yes, wondered how that would work with a 2.5
like,
year
respectfully,
old.
she's not going to understand what this is anyways. I promise you, it's not like she's going to forget how to put on her life jacket. I'll be putting it on for her in the event of an emergency, so she can watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Did we do the sail away party? And is your family a fan of the sail away party? I feel like we haven't talked about the sail away party in a hot minute.
Yes, I'm a huge fan of the sail away party, and my husband could like totally do without it, but I'm like, we have to go because it's just so magical, and it's the first time you hear the ship's horn, and it's great. The nice thing was we tried to set our daughter up for success by letting her watch it on YouTube before we went. So she like knew the sail away song beforehand, which was like, talk about seeing magic through your child's eyes. For her to like see it in person and not be at home asking to see it on YouTube, and like truly watch the characters come out on stage in front of her, was just like, oh, tears streaming down my face day 1. It was amazing. It was so great. I will say it was really hard for us to get up there, and we did not get a good spot for the sail away. So that was kind of a bummer. At one point I like weaseled my way to the front and like put her up with the kids so that she could kind of have a view, but she's so stinking young. She was dancing a little bit and then was like, where the heck is my mom? We tried it. We had fun nonetheless. I had to pick her up so she could see most of it, but it was a blast. It was so good. And then we went up to deck 12 as we like pulled out. It's one of our favorite things to do, is just watch the ship pull out of port. So yeah, we did go to sail away, and it was awesome. And I was grateful we had good weather for it too, because that's always a bummer when they have to cancel.
Awesome. Well, I am guessing after that, it is just about time for an early dining dinner with 2 young children.
We definitely did early dining dinner. Thank goodness.
Where did we dine in your first night?
First night was Enchanted Garden. And I will say, one thing that I observed about this cruise, compared to all the other cruises I would say I've taken post-COVID, which is 3 other ones, I felt like, and maybe this is just me, I don't know, but my husband and I both agreed we felt like the tables were really cramped. I don't know what it was. I don't think the ships were that much more crowded because our last one was late 2022. I don't know. And maybe we're onto something. Maybe it's just in our heads, but it felt really packed. It's specifically an Enchanted Garden. And again, that could also be because we were trying to maneuver a stroller in there as well for our youngest, but it was just rough. Like we were right on top of our neighbors and there was really no convenient place to put the stroller, and the baby was sleeping because it was the first night and everybody was exhausted. The dining experience itself was fine, other than the fact that we had newly trained our 2.5-year-old to be potty trained, and she asked to go to the potty like 47 times.
Oh my God.
So I got my workout in. I worked off all the calories that I ate.
How was your meal?
It was wonderful. I enjoy on Disney Cruise Line that if you've been before, you can know what to expect. And if you've had a great meal, you can look forward to it the next time because you know it's coming. Mm-hmm. I will say the menus have been pretty much the same, as you all probably know, since I took my very first cruise. Enchanted Garden isn't necessarily my favorite meal, but it was the first time that we were able to like truly do ordering off the kids menu consistently for my daughter. And I learned a lot about that because I didn't realize that those options change every night. And I was like ordering, different things based on what the menu was each night for her. And I think it was like night 3 or 4. And our waiter was like, if she liked something yesterday, you can just ask for that again. You don't have to get what's on tonight's menu. And I was like, oh, of course, right? Like they all share the same galley. At the end of the day, if she wants mac and cheese, they could probably still bring her mac and cheese, right? So that was an interesting experience. And overall, a great one.
Yeah, typically the kitchens are pretty good, especially with children that may be picky eaters. They are generally really good about helping you get what you need to keep your children satisfied and sitting for a meal.
Yes. And I will say both of my children now have had eating breakthroughs on Disney cruises.
Oh,
when my oldest was 1, and we took her on a cruise, she like really was not loving solids in terms of like, she was just newly 1. She was mostly puree fed, and she was just not doing great with what she liked in terms of solids. And she ate everything that cruise because there were just so many options. Like the world was her oyster. And then this cruise, my youngest, she has not been doing great on purees. Like she's just a little bit behind. And so they just brought some stuff out, and all of a sudden, like, again, the world became her oyster and she just loved it. And now she's having 3 purees a day. Like, I don't know what it is about a Disney cruise with my kids, but it's just, there's so many options that I think it works as a nice little segue into solids. So that's good.
So did you order the purees ahead of time with the head waiter or at the beginning of the meal? Or I guess the first night she was sleeping?
Yeah, the first night she was sleeping. The second night they asked if I wanted one, and they were like, what do you want? I said, I don't know, banana. So they brought out like a banana puree. And then they came out at the end of that meal and said, if you want one tomorrow, we can prepare it for you. It's better if you do it in advance. I'm not sure why. Maybe they pre-prep it or something. But they said, what do you want for tomorrow? And I said, I don't know, surprise me, anything, right? And they ended up bringing out, I think, like pureed peas, and she loved it. So I said, just keep this one coming. It's green, it's healthy, great. Bring it on. And that's literally what she had every night afterwards.
Disney is so good with stuff like that.
So good.
Love that. Well, it sounds like we've got 2 tired little ones at the end of your first day. Did you end up being able to take advantage of any of the other activities later into the evening?
I did. My husband did not. So one thing about this cruise that I will say is that this was the first time that we were taking kids on a cruise without extra hands. First 2 times we had respective in-laws, grandparents, if you will. And then we also had his cousins the 3rd time with my oldest. But here we were with 2, not just 1 child, 2 children. And it was just us, no extra help. So we made a point to ensure that each of us got like a night to ourselves. So he booked one of the old-fashioned, like World of Old-Fashioned tastings, which is one of the newer tastings that he did on like night 5 or 6, I want to say. And I booked Prima Notte, which was super exciting. So I got my alone night, very first thing right out of the gate on night 1. And I went to Prima Notte alone, party of 1, which was so cool.
Tell us all the deets, because we are currently booked for Prima Notte on our fantasy cruise here coming up in a few months.
Okay, it was amazing. So you walk in, you go to like the check-in area of Palo Remy, and they tell you to have a seat in Meridian, and they greet you with, it's not champagne. It was like a sparkling wine. I liked it a lot. I wrote down the name. No, it wasn't Prosecco. It was something that I had never heard of before. I'll get the name for you. I'll tell it to you. But it was delicious. And then they walked us to the back area of Palo where the buffet used to be, like the round room. If you've ever been there, you know what I'm talking about. And it was a giant round table. I felt like I was walking into, I don't know if you've ever seen Clue, the movie, where they all walk into the dining room and they're all like, hello, hello, like all these awkward strangers, like we're here to dine together. It felt like a murder mystery party. Like it was so fascinating because you're like, okay, I'm just sitting at literally a very intimate round table. It was a big table, but there was 9 of us total.
That is great that you could do that by yourself and you're just at the table with everybody. So it wasn't like you were by yourself.
I know. I was like expecting to just be at a table alone. But nope, I was with 8 of my closest stranger friends. And it was really interesting because like the personalities, you know, as you go throughout the night, you're drinking more and like the personalities came through. Like there was this 80-year-old man with 0 filter and like he was keeping everybody on his toes and, you know, who was from this place and who was from that place. And like everybody loosened up throughout the evening, which was interesting. But anyways, you know, it's a pairing, right? So they present the wines and then they also present a food pairing with it. The best part about it is the storytelling. They introduce the chef and then they introduce the sommelier and the sommelier really takes over. And it was a full almost 90-minute experience where he just, I mean, I have videos of him and he's just like so animated and in it and telling the stories of all these wines. And there was one, he was talking about the Parent Trap and like the vineyards in California and like all these crazy cool things. And then, I mean, they were also heavy pours, like for being a tasting, they were pretty standard size pours that you got. So I was very impressed in terms of that. And also in terms of the quality of the wine that you're getting, like they were expensive bottles that they were pouring. So if you are a wine snob, you will love it. I will say in terms of the pairings of the food, I thought they were okay. Like that was not really the shining light of the experience, so to speak. It was a tuna tartare, like a tuna steak type of situation. It was the standard gnocchi, like pesto amuse-bouche that Palo frequently has. It was a Wagyu beef and then some like chocolate cherry dessert. So overall, the food was okay. It wasn't anything special. Again, I've had the gnocchi at Palo. I've had Wagyu beef before at Remy, you know, so it wasn't anything like totally knock your socks off, but it's also a new offering, right? So I'm sure that they're adjusting. Yeah, overall, it was great, especially if you like and respect wine. Mm-hmm. You will love just the storytelling and just the ability to listen to that sommelier talk because that was worth the money. I will say one thing about that experience though, and my husband experienced this in his World of Old Fashioned tasting, which I had never seen on any other tasting I've done on Disney Cruise Line, is when you book it, the price tag is $85. When they bring your check, it has gratuity. So it was $100, which is fine. I don't mind paying it, right? It was just like, oh, so this is an auto gratuity experience. This is technically $100 experience, not the $85 that is advertised. So just word to the wise, expect to pay $100, not $85.
Great information. Anything else before we closed out your first night?
I went and got ice cream alone. That was really nice. I didn't have to share with a 2-year-old. And I just roamed the ship and went home and went back to the stateroom rather. And my husband had the girls in bed and like, that was night 1. It was great. 10 out of 10.
Awesome. Well, why don't we move into our next 2 days here? You have 2 back-to-back sea days, which what an awesome way to start out a sailing. What did we do to fill up this time on the sea days? What does your family usually like to do around the ship?
So day 2, we did the Royal Gathering. That was how we started the day, which is that pre-booking, you know, princess meet and greet experience. And it was great because my 2-year-old is just the perfect age. And she like gets it and understands it, which the last time we went, I booked it as well, but she was 1 and she's like, what are we doing? Like, who are these people, Mom? I'd rather be like in the bottle, you know? But this time, like she was really into it. We really kind of hung out, walked the ship while she took a nap. I took the baby and went on deck 4 and like sat on one of those, I call them the Titanic chairs, like the loungers out there on deck 4. Just like watched people go by. We did a little room service. We got Mickey bars via room service, little cake of the day. We truly did close to nothing. Like we just relaxed, walked the ship, saw some characters because we're big on characters at this age. And that was that. And then it was formal night that evening. So we dressed up for formal night. The kids were absolutely miserable that evening.
Oh no.
Yep. And formal night was a quick into bed as well. So like day 2 was relaxing, but not eventful for us. Like we didn't really even do any organized activities. I think we might have gone to Andy's room for an open house, as they do for the younger kids when they open it up to all ages, just to like let our daughter run it out. I know I mentioned this at the front of the episode as well. It took us a few days to get used to traveling with two really, really young kids. Like we, by the end of, I would say day 3, had to have like a come to Jesus moment, the two of us, my husband and I, because it was like, I'm not having fun. It's hard. A 2.5-year-old, man, they got a lot of energy and all they want to do is run. And I remember this distinct moment actually when we got home from the cruise and she got out of the car and she came home and she was jumping on our couches. Like she was just running around the house she was acting her age. And I took this moment and looked at him and I was like, this is the energy we saw on the cruise ship, but I am much more relaxed when she is in these 4 walls. There is no one staring at us. It's not an atrium filled with hundreds of people after dinner and she's sprinting around trying to go under ropes. Like that is very stressful, but it's the same energy just being shown in different ways, right? So it took us a few days to like really settle into our routine of just like going with the flow on the cruise ship. So that's why I'm trying to tell everybody that attempts to do this with such young kids that like lower the expectations, lower the stakes, which you will find as I go through a few more stories that I forgot to do that several more times. Overall, like day 2 was really just like, oh my God, this is a lot. Just survival mode a little bit. I will say day 3 was fun because we went to the Hey Howdy breakfast because it was Pixar Day at Sea. I haven't said that yet. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. It was Pixar Day at Sea. So yeah, we went to the Hey Howdy breakfast, which was really cute. Perfect for my 2.5-year-old. She loved it. We made sure she watched Toy Story beforehand, loved the characters. They don't sign. They give you one of those like pre-signed little postcards. They just drop it at the table. They did like a hand-passed pastry tray, and then they came around and took your order off the menu. But again, you can get, as much as you want, but it's all pre-ordering. It came out super fast. It was a very quick experience for a breakfast, like for a character dining. But it was great because they have like live musicians. They're all mic'd up and they come play the guitar in the little aisles. It was very, very cute. I will say we were seated next to a table filled with adults with no children in their party. And I think that they were like having regrets. They were like, this is geared for preschoolers, which it very much is. It's for a younger audience, unless you really enjoy Toy Story, which I personally do. But it's definitely geared for little kids. So we did do that. That was really fun. And then we probably did 47 more laps around the ship with my 2-year-old. And then we put them in the nursery.
And took a nap yourself?
Literally, I have a video of my husband like melting into the floor after we dropped them off because it was like, oh my God, freedom. And we had like 3 hours to ourselves. And I was like, what are we going to do? And we dropped them off at the nursery, which was easy the first time around because we're like, time to go play. And my oldest is like, play, let's go. And just like wandered right in, we're like, bye-bye, shut the door. And we just like relaxed in the adult area. We just got lunch alone. We had nothing planned. We just got in our bathing suits, went up to the top deck, got a drink, just hung out. I think at one point we did end up going back to the room and my husband crashed a power nap, but it was great. And then we picked up the girls, again, sprinted around the deck, went to dinner, which was Animators that night. Wonderful dinner experience. Overall, I think we went to bed semi-early that evening as well. That kind of comes with the territory of having young kids, right? Like we're not going to go out and party every night. So I will say when I say that we went to bed early, it was definitely later than their normal time that they go to bed at home. A lot of people were asking me like on Instagram and stuff, like, how do you keep them on their schedule? The only schedule I was following was my oldest nap time and trying to hit that as much as possible because toddlers. But other than that, like they normally go to bed at 8 at home. I was letting my toddler go to bed at 9. Or the baby usually goes to bed at 7. I was letting her go to bed at 8. Like we were just trying to remain super flexible. And like when they're tired, they're tired. And if they're not showing that they're tired, then we're going to have a vacation,
That makes sense. How did you feed Liliana, your 2.5-year-old, with the buffet and dining? Doesn't usually open till noon, but that's when she was going to go take a nap.
It was actually open, I want to say 11:30. But we also did a lot of like the Flo's V8 by the pool, which I think opened a bit earlier. I think that was like 10:30, 11 o'clock opens. So we did a lot of that and we did a lot of room service. We did room service more on this cruise than we ever have before.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because then everybody can just kind of relax and be in the
and
room.
she can like watch her show on the TV in the stateroom. We spent a lot of time in the stateroom, more than ever. So we needed siestas where we could just chill, let her watch her show and not be sprinting everywhere.
There is nothing wrong with some stateroom time. Katie and I very often will go back, order room service, and then nap until the room service comes.
Yes.
Oh,
well, I
smart.
feel like we always get off of a cruise and we're like, gosh, don't you wish we could have just spent a day enjoying the stateroom? Which is so silly because there's so many other things to do, but it really is relaxing to just stay in your own space and not be around other people.
For sure. And I love that room service is included. You just have to tip the delivery person.
Yes.
And
I'm glad you said that because there were several times, it was hit or miss, but there were several times where they dropped off and my husband was like, oh, do I need to sign the receipt? And they said, no, sir, you're all set. And he was like, I usually tip. That's weird. And then other times they did give him a receipt and he did leave a tip, but it seems like maybe they're getting away from tipping in room service.
I will either bring cash or when I place the order, I'll ask the person to bring a slip and so that I can leave a tip on there. And you can actually always leave a tip like after that, either at guest services, which is obviously a lot of effort and especially with young kids. Yeah. But I know that I have definitely done that before where I was
really
like,
good to know. I never thought about that. So if that happens again, I'll make sure because I want them to get their tips. They work really hard.
Taking it back to animators real quick, did you and your family have a good view of the Crush show? And what did your little ones think of that?
We did. My oldest one thought it was super cool, although we've never seen Finding Nemo yet with her. So she was like totally understanding that the turtle was talking to people, but the turtle never spoke directly to her because we weren't in one of those coveted seats. But she did understand that like he was talking to other people and she was definitely enamored with that. And they also do the thing where like the fish create like they form different things and you have to guess as it builds, right? It was so cute. She loved that. Yes. I appreciate that they have those things to keep kids entertained throughout the meal because there's only so much of like me trying to avoid screen time as much as humanly possible that I can do. Right. I only wish the other restaurants had interactive elements like animators because animators is great for that.
That about takes us out of our sea days, and the next day we are headed to Tortola. Did we have anything planned that day, and what did we end up doing?
The only thing we had planned was to get off the ship at some point because on our honeymoon cruise, we loved Tortola and it was our first time back. We didn't have any excursions because there weren't really a lot that you could do with a less than 1-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. There's just not a lot of options. And also like, I'm not a huge beach person in general. Could we have taken a cab or a boat or something to a nearby public beach? Absolutely. But to be on a beach with a child that doesn't know how to walk yet feels like a nightmare to me, just personally. Unless I have like my full beach gear at home and like something to put the baby on, right? Like it feels like more effort than it's worth. So what we did was we got up, we put bathing suits on and we went to Nemo's Reef. Knowing that this was going to be the first day that people were going to be free to get off the ship in 3 days, we had a feeling a lot of people would take advantage of that. And we were absolutely correct. We went to Nemo's Reef, which is the toddler splash pad. And we were one of like 2 families in there.
Nice.
Whereas on the sea days, it was packed. Like the whole pool deck was packed on sea days. And so we were like, maybe we're onto something here. And we spent like the better part of the entire morning in the pools, in the splash pad. That was the main reason that we potty trained my oldest for this cruise, was so that she could go in the real pools. There's one other splash pad that's like up on deck 13. I forget what it's called, the Aqua Lab maybe, but that one actually requires you to be potty trained as well. So she had a great time being able to be a big kid and going in the Mickey pool. That was a first. So that was very exciting. And we took full advantage of that. We had a by the pool lunch and then we went down for a nap. And then we said, all right, once we wake up for a nap, maybe then we'll get off the ship, which was also a brilliant plan because we were going against the current once again, in terms of like everybody else was coming on the ship because it was like 2:00. They're getting back from their early excursions. They're headed to the pool now. We were done with the pool, getting off the ship, no line to get off the ship whatsoever. And we just went and roamed the port just to reminisce and just see everything again. We had no intention of leaving the port area, just with little kids on an island. It just felt like a lot. So we just roamed and then came back on the ship and we got ready for Remy. And my husband and I went to Remy that evening and put the girls in the nursery once again, which was great. Remy is one of my husband's favorite meals of his life. And I will say, as I talked earlier about menus not really changing in like the main dining areas, every single time that I have gone to Remy, it doesn't matter how much time in between, there is something slightly different about the menu, if not totally different. And it always is incredible. And it always keeps me on my toes. So we had a wonderful, wonderful Remy experience. We did the wine pairing with it, which was a first for me. I'd never done that. And the last time we went, I was super early on in my pregnancy with my second. So I could not participate when everybody else around me was, which was devastating. And it was flawless. Flawless meal, like truly no notes. It was the best. We had a little time after. We went to Ooh La La, had a nightcap, then picked up the kids. Like it was just the best date night ever.
Which menus did you do for Remy?
I took pictures of them. We did it's in French, but I think it's more the American menu. I did swap one thing for the gambero on the French menu, which is basically like the lobster dish, because I'm a lobster snob. I love it. Ours was a toothfish, the lobster dish that I swapped out, a poulet rouge, which was like chicken. It's like fried chicken. It was Southern. It was supposed to be Southern American cuisine. It was unbelievable. It was like sweet potato and chicken and delicious. It was a Wagyu beef, which I was pleased to see because the first time I ever had Wagyu beef in Remy, it was an upcharge. So this was included, which was great. And then we had the pearl for dessert, which is the most incredible, like globe looking demi glaze. It was unbelievable. It was like coconut, and I can't even describe it. I'm just dreaming about it and my mouth is watering.
How did the girls do with the nursery, and especially at night?
Yeah, so second time around was not as great as the first time around because we couldn't trick my oldest into being like, look, it's time to go play. Here's a new place. And then she turns around and her parents are around. She knew where she was the second time. And she knew she was totally about to be dropped off, which was a tantrum. For sure. When she started tantruming, the 8-month-old was tantruming as well because she's like, why is everybody upset? Right? Like they can just sense at that age that something is, amiss. So dropping them off was rough. And I remember we were sitting in Ooh La La after our meal, just trying to like relax. And we got a notification at 10:15 p.m. that says, hello, your oldest still has not fallen asleep. And we're like, well, maybe we should call it quits. So we tried to finish up semi-quickly. I think we got down there maybe like 15 minutes, 30 minutes early and picked them up. So they were exhausted. The younger one napped essentially in their like nursery cribs, which I love that they have the nursery cribs. It's like such a serene little environment, but I have to imagine that it's a new environment and there's also a bunch of kids screaming, right? So I'm sure it's a very hard sleeping environment, particularly.
Yeah. And how do you get your child when they're napping out? They don't let you go back there, do they?
No, they literally pick them up in their arms and carry them to you and transfer them into your arms, which 9 out of 10 times my kids at least wake up, which is fine because like they wake up, they see mommy and then they're like, oh, my comfort, or they see dad and they're like, oh, phew, dad's arms. And we'll just tell them like, go back to sleep. It's okay. And like, they might put their head back on our shoulder just to walk back to the room, or they might be awake. There was one night, I think, where my daughter needed to just like run a few laps, like get the energy out and okay, now we'll go back to bed an hour later. But it's a little bit of a sacrifice or the risk that you take to have an adult night out on a Disney cruise ship without help.
For sure.
But it is great that service is available for you at least.
Yes. And it's like $9 an hour. That rate has still not increased.
Yeah, don't tell them.
I know. I don't want to say it too loud because I'm scared it's going to get taken away from me. I can't get a babysitter for almost double that.
It's $9 though per kid, right?
Per kid, yes.
Yeah,
I should say that. Yes, $9 per hour per kid,
which is still great.
Well, moving on to our 5th day, we are in St. Thomas. What did we have going on this day?
So I had big plans in St. Thomas to like really be unique and go do something that we've never done before. And I did all this research and I was planning on getting off the ship and going to the Children's Museum, which I didn't know existed. Because once again, I looked into the excursions and there was just not a lot of options. And yeah, we could take a cab and go to Coral World across the island. But I just didn't feel great about like the car seat situation. Like that whole thing kind of freaks me out when you don't have your kids' car seats, and I just wasn't into it. And the last time that we were in St. Thomas was less than a year and a half ago. And we did I think it's called the Paradise Point, like the gondolas up the mountain to go see the view. And that was super kid friendly, super fun. But to do something different, I was like, let's go to this children's museum. And we woke up that day and my daughter looked at us and was like, pool? Because we did it the day before. And we're like, sure, why the heck not? So we were at the pool by 8:30 a.m. Once again, literally stayed there until lunch/nap. Then they were starting to, because it was a little later in the cruise by this point, and the Pixar day at sea was, I think, day six,
probably six.
Something like that. And so more Pixar characters were starting to be put on the schedule. They did it like leading up to Pixar Day at Sea. And so because this was the day before Pixar Day at Sea, there was like Mike and Sully, and they were out with Booze Door and Merida from Brave and you name it. Like there were so many great Pixar opportunities. So we were like, let's just meet some characters, because again, a lot of people were off the ship and it was a great time to take advantage of shorter lines for those things. So that's what we ended up doing. We ended up not getting off the ship in St. Thomas, which was fine. Like I could take them to a children's museum on land where I live, no big deal. But yeah, we ended up just meeting characters and going to dinner. This was the night that I took my daughter to the Frozen show, my oldest. So it was the night that my husband had his World of Old Fashioned tasting, which he very much enjoyed. And he said they used really nice bourbons, FYI, for anybody that's a bourbon snob like him. He said they used very nice bourbons that made it worth the price point. But I put the younger one in the nursery and took the older one on like a little mommy and me date. So we went to go see the Frozen show and she was glued. She was enamored. It was amazing. We had a magical moment when we came out and all the green army men were up on the 5th deck as we were on our way to the nursery to pick up her sister. And they like heard me say her name and turned around and called her by name and like grabbed her hand and like started marching all over the 5th deck with her. I'm shocked she went with them, because I would be afraid if I was 2.5 if that happened to me, like these 3 army men. But it was awesome. We went and picked up the baby and called it a night. But that was one of our later nights. I think we were out till, I want to say like 10:15 with the kids. And then my husband was out actually a lot longer. I put the kids to bed and fell asleep and woke up, and luckily he was there next to me because I wouldn't have known. I fell asleep. He said he met a whole bunch of people in the tasting and they ended up staying like an hour afterwards, just like shooting the breeze and getting to know each other. So he like made friends, which made me really happy.
Oh, that's cute.
Definitely a nice thing about a Disney cruise is you typically have lots of people into very similar things.
That's for sure.
Moving on to day 6, we are on Pixar Day at Sea. How was this day for you guys? What did we get up to?
This was fun. One thing I didn't realize, because I've never been on like a themed day other than like I've been on a maritime cruise and I've been on the Halloween cruises, but we opened the shades and there was like a Pixar Day at Sea big sticker on the door.
Oh my God. In your cabin.
Like in the cabin. And it felt like Tinkerbell came in the middle of the night and like put that up. But obviously they do it before turn down service and then they just shut the drapes and you don't see it. But when you open it up, it's like the first welcome to the day, which is such a brilliant touch. I just was floored with that. Anyways, so this day was interesting. To tell you what happened on this day, I have to go back to the night before because there's one crucial piece of this that I forgot. I had scheduled us to go have a family photo shoot in the Shutters photo studio.
We haven't talked about that.
Yes. And I was so excited because I do not have like good family photos of the 4 of us yet at all. I have newborn photos of each of them, like, but since my second has been born, like life has just been nuts. So I was like, let's just do this. So we had it scheduled before dinner. And on the way there, I tried to put the dress shoes on my 2.5-year-old and she said, no, I want to wear my Crocs. And I said, no, because Crocs in a photo shoot? No, thank you. I literally bought these shoes just for this. And boy, was that a mistake because she flipped out, full-blown toddler tantrum, could not recover from it. We get to the photo studio. She would not participate, could not, would not, should not. It was a nightmare. I've never been so stressed out in my life. It was a parent's worst nightmare. In terms of like trying to do things for your family. I like walked out of there wanting to cry. It was miserable. But the shining moment of that was the Shutter's studio cast member, or I'll say crew member, because I think they're technically third party. She was fantastic. And she was like, listen, this is not going to work. Do you want to redo it? We got 2 more days. Come back. And I'm like, no, I can't even do it. And she was like, come back and try again and lower the stakes.
Aww.
And I was like, okay. So we booked it for 9 a.m. the next morning. So we started our Pixar day at sea by getting up and going to the photo studio at 9 a.m. Now, mind you, I said that the night before I was like trying to put on cute dress shoes because I had all the outfits picked for that evening, right? Like everybody was going to coordinate, and I was in a pink dress. They were in pink dresses. My husband had on a pink shirt. Like it was all going to be cute. And I said, this is too much because I'm not going to dress us all up just to have this fail again. So like she said, we're going to lower the stakes. We are going to go in the Pixar Day at Sea t-shirts that I had planned on wearing today. We're going to wear the dang Crocs, and we're just going to go as we are and see what happens. So we did, and it went okay. Think we might have gotten a few. And she said, great. So what I'll do is I'll have you come back later tonight and we'll review the photos together. And we're like, okay. We had time for the girls to go in the nursery again that evening. So my husband and I said 8:00, right when we put them in, we'll come back and we'll review the photos and see if there's anything worthwhile. But we were doubting it at that point. Then we just spent the day at sea basically meeting characters after that. We met Mike Wazowski. We met Rex, which was so cool. I mean, I've never met a character that genuinely looks like he is animated in front of me. That was wild. I hope they bring him to the parks because that was so cool. And they had a bonus meet and greet on the way out, which was brilliant. They had Woody. I think some other people got Jesse, but we got Woody. And my daughter calls him Cowboy, and it was a big win. Then we had lunch and took naps, and then we went to go meet Remy the rat, who is the star of our household. We are obsessed with Remy from Ratatouille. We were dressed as all the Ratatouille characters for Halloween. So it was a big deal in our house. We had matching outfits that were all Ratatouille themed, and we went and met Remy, and my 2.5-year-old loved it. We did some more open house time in Andy's room, which was great. And then we went to dinner, which this was interesting because it was the Pixar menu, which was the one menu that I have never had on a Disney cruise before. We were in Royal Court that evening, and it was really fascinating. I took a picture of the menus. I had like a macaroni and cheese appetizer that honestly was not great. The best part was like the breadcrumbs on top. My husband had an heirloom tomato and burrata stack type of thing, which he said was really good. He also had a smoked salmon situation, which was great. And then he had, I got to look at what this was, pork tenderloin. Oh no, he had a grouper fillet, which he said was phenomenal. I had the Cobb salad. The incredible Cobb salad is maybe one of the best things that I've ever had on a Disney cruise. It was so good. I was like, bring this to a normal menu soon.
I've never heard of a Cobb salad on a Disney cruise. It was on
like the lighter fare menu, you know, but I saw it because I'm one of those people that looks at the menu before I go to a restaurant always. I saw it and was like, I gotta have that. Like, and it was, I'm looking at a picture of it right now and I'm dreaming about it. It's so good. I also got the tikka masala just to try. They had a chicken tikka masala, which was okay. And then it was dessert, and we went crazy on desserts because we wanted to try them all because we never get a chance with this menu. And I had read online about this menu that everybody was like, that stupid Pixar ball cheesecake is so not worth the hype. So we got a whole bunch of other things, assuming that would be the worst. And that was my favorite thing on the table. I loved it. I could have eaten a whole one by myself. The rest of the desserts were okay. There was like a churros thing. There was like a chocolate hazelnut creme brulee type of situation as well. They were good, but not great. And so after dinner, we went back to Shutter's photo studio, and they sure know how to do their jobs because they put I didn't realize they were going to put all of the photos in like a slideshow with sentimental music. And they get through like the hundreds. She showed us all the good, bad, the ugly of our photos. And I get through and I look at my husband and he's sobbing. And I was like, oh my God. And he's like, I'm sorry. It's just like my girls. And like, even the bad photos are just like such a memory. And I was like, oh, for crying out loud, we're about to drop some money on these photos. Cause if he's crying, then we're purchasing. And then they open up the packages and our jaw dropped. It's like $2,500 to get all of your digital downloads or some crazy amount. I was not expecting that, but we settled on like 5 digital downloads. 'Cause I was like, oh, maybe we don't need to spend an entire cruise amount just on photos because we'd like to maybe take another cruise this year. So it's very expensive.
And they were
But
all
they
black
have
and white.
print options too.
And were they all black and white as well?
Not all of them.
Oh, so now they'll do color.
Yes, actually, all of the photos that we ended up purchasing were color.
Okay. So this is so when I did or looked into doing the Shutter Gallery when my son would have been like 2 or 3, all the pictures came in black and white. And I bet they got pushback from that.
Probably.
Because I ended up canceling it because I was like, I don't want a black and white photo of my family. Yep. So I was like, we'll just see what we can take, in the lobby type of thing. So, okay. That's good.
I will note as well, because this question actually came up in our Patreon group literally just the other day. It actually still says on the Shutter photo session when you book it that it's a black and white photo session.
Interesting. Yeah. No, can confirm. I have the digital downloads. All of mine are color.
That's fantastic. That is really good information.
Do you mind sharing what it cost for 5 photos?
I can, but my husband was brilliant and said, do you take cast member discount? And they
nice.
did.
Love that.
We got 35% off. But I want to say even with 35% off, it was a few $100s. So
that's crazy, but
crazy.
And do you mind if we just leave it in just like that, where we talk about 35% off, $300? Okay. And was that in addition to the sitting fee? Was there a sitting fee or
$0 sitting fee?
Okay, cool.
Which is why she was like, yeah, you could just come back another day, which thank God, because if that would have happened at any other photo studio where there was a sitting fee, like I would have wasted my money. So that was nice that it was no pressure to have it go totally haywire with a toddler, right? But she showed us all of the photos from that first night as well, which most of them weren't great, but she showed us all of them. And we ended up buying all 5 of our digital downloaded photos that we bought were ones from the t-shirt session.
Yeah.
Like that's the memory. And there was actually a really great one of, I have the baby on my lap and she's sobbing and my toddler is flailed on the ground, throwing a toddler tantrum. And I'm just like, this is a nightmare. And it is just a photo that encapsulates motherhood in its truest form. And I was like, I almost want to buy that one, but I couldn't bring myself to do it just because it was so expensive. But it would have been a great memory to have.
For sure.
Yeah. But then we ended up, after we picked our photos and spent a lot of money on a thumb drive, since the girls were still in the nursery, we went and just enjoyed some adult beverages, which we love to do. We did that on our honeymoon. We spent a lot of time in the Skyline Lounge. So we did that. We spent some time at the Meridian. I had a great espresso martini, 10 out of 10. And then we just went up and picked up the kids. But that was a late night as well, because we stayed out till I think 11 and picked them up. We were literally the last ones picking up our kids at the nursery that night, but they were sleeping that time. So that worked out.
My last sailing on the Dream was a post dark time cruise, and the Skyline Lounge was only being used for tastings. So I am so excited to get back to that lounge because that was our first time on the Dream.
I'll also say about that lounge, my husband splurged on one of the Magic Band Pluses. Mm-hmm. And that was the coolest place to have a Magic Band Plus because it would vibrate and change color every time the skylines changed, which was really neat. It did it a few other times, like an Animator's Palette and if you went to shows, but we just weren't going to a lot of shows this cruise. But that was a really cool venue to see that in action.
That's really good to know.
That is very interesting because I've been anti Disney Band Plus for a very long time. Now you
I did not have a Magic Band Plus either, Lake?
No, I only have the 2s. I still have 1s that work.
Me too.
I have a whole bowl of them that I have as a decoration in my office. Yeah. So somebody was in Disney Springs with a 1 and he's like, yeah, it still opens the door and I can charge to it. No ride photos anymore, but I will say that band is convenient. And if for people that have children that go in and out of the kids club, but then might not always like a band on their wrist, my son has been able to put his on in such a way that he could take the band off at nighttime, where he can hang it by the door. He could put it back on when he leaves the cabin, but it gets him past his little sensory issue with wearing that band, but also then he can use it for the kids club. And that's his security band around the ship as well. So
one last question on Pixar Day at Sea, and then we will move on to our Castaway Day. Were you able to take advantage of any other of the early booking things for that, like the character interactions? I know we already talked about Hey Howdy Hey, which is also an early booking experience.
Yeah, the Rex one is actually an early booking experience as well. So we did the Hey Howdy Breakfast, we did the Rex. I think you can also book with the Incredibles, which we didn't do just because my daughter's not super into the Incredibles. But between that and the Royal Gathering, those were the 3 advanced booking ones that we did. There were a lot of folks that had trouble with advanced bookings, according to our Facebook page, just because like the midnight glitching. But I guess lucky me that I have a baby that has me awake at all hours of the night, that I was able to snag things right at midnight that evening that it all became available.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, why don't we move into our last full day on the cruise? This is our Castaway Day. How did we spend our beach day?
So we started in the splash pad. Shocking.
good.
So this was actually one of my first times that, or at least my first time in a while, that we didn't wake up basically in port at Castaway. Most of the time, like we're either almost there or like already there. But on this particular sailing, I woke up and we were still completely surrounded by water. And I was like, well, this is interesting. Our all ashore time wasn't until like 10:15. So that kind of like messed with the day in terms of like getting off the ship and enjoying and naps and like all of the logistics of having young kids with us. So we went to the splash pad and then we could slowly see us pulling into Castaway. We ended up staying at the splash pad, I think, for like the better part of 2-3 hours that morning. And we just got off the ship for lunch. We have done the splash pad on Castaway, which is fun, slightly underwhelming in my opinion, but fun nevertheless, and like available and an option. And we've also done the beach with our daughter back when she was like 1. And again, it's like, there's really not much for like really little kids to do in sand when they don't understand how to walk in sand or don't know how to walk at all. So that was another day where we got off. We went to Cookie's barbecue for lunch, kind of just hung out on the island. And then as we made our way back, both girls fell asleep in the strollers and we were like, this is kind of great. So we went back on the ship and it was a ghost town. There was like no one on the ship. We went to the Vista Cafe on deck 4 and got ourselves cappuccinos because it was one of the only places that was open. And we just like sat at those couches outside the Vista Cafe and just enjoyed the silence and like the ghost town of the lobby. And it was really, really nice. Really nice. So this was probably the least Castaway day that I have had in a very long time. But for those that have been on a million cruises and, you know, if you've seen one Castaway, you've seen them all, right? Like it was definitely worth it to have some on the ship time when there weren't as many people. You've probably noticed by now we're big fans of not being around crowds.
I love that. Same.
Yeah, we actually did this very similarly when we did the Castaway Challenge cruise. Was we got right back on the ship and we had rainforest passes that cruise, and it had been so packed the whole cruise, even on Nassau Day. And we got in there and it was still like they had just opened and we were the only ones in there for like hours on Castaway Day.
I will say I had full intention of doing the Castaway 5K this trip, but like woke up and just felt the air and it was so hot. And I was like, I just no longer have a desire. And then like realizing that we wouldn't get to Castaway until like 10:30ish and thinking about naps, and it just doing it in the blazing heat at like 3:30 in the afternoon just felt like a disaster of a time. So I nixed that idea, which I was bummed about because I've never done the Castaway 5K, but I'm also not a runner. But I just wanted to say I did it. Hopefully next time I'll get to that.
Yes. When you go on the Wish.
Yes, let's hope.
Was it weather? Did you guys talk about that already? About why you guys were late into port?
No, that was the time that we were scheduled to be there. Yeah. So if you think about this itinerary, right, you go from Canaveral and then you have 2 full days at sea before you pull into Tortola. But when you leave St. Thomas, you have only 1 full day at sea. Now, our all aboard time at St. Thomas, I want to say was like 3:45. It's early. So they get a move on leaving St. Thomas, but it's only that 1 full day at sea. So those extra few hours pulling into Castaway like really made a difference in getting us there.
Yes, this is actually pretty common for those Eastern fantasy sailings. Exactly what you said. It's a long distance to cover. There actually have been times where they've done the 5K on the ship so that people could get that out of the way and just enjoy their beach day. So everyone else starts to get back on board the ship. How did we spend our last evening on board the Fantasy?
We went to dinner and then we went to go see Disney's Believe, which is so exciting. It's one of my favorite shows. And we actually went with both girls. We were like, let's just try it. We'll sit on the end of an aisle. And if we need to leave, we'll leave, right? But we went and the baby fell asleep literally 5 minutes before the show started in my arms and stayed asleep the whole time, which was a total win. And our 2.5-year-old liked it. She very much enjoys live theater, but I realized very quickly that like she's only seen Peter Pan out of the movies that are represented in that show. And like she hasn't seen any of the others. So like I'll geek out over Lion King and Princess and the Frog and like all the other great scenes, Jungle Book, right, represented in that show. But she didn't know any of those characters. So I was like, I should have thought this through. This was totally like selfish mom wanted to see Believe because she loves it. And it's about like a father-daughter thing, right? So let's go see the show. And she was kind of like, all right, can we go? So she lasted till the end of the show, but that was pretty much our evening. Was we went to go see Believe. We got out at like 9:30. It's a little bit of a longer show, a little bit of a slower show, I realized, once you have kids. And then once we got out of the show, we kind of just enjoyed the last bit of the evening and headed to bed to end the cruise.
And then do you go to first seating breakfast in the dining room?
Absolutely not. I used to because I used to feel guilted into it. Like the waiters really push it like on the last night, like, please come, please come. Yeah. And I always was like, am I supposed to go? And I always used to go, but like, no, now with kids and everything, we send one person up to Cabanas to grab some food and come back to the room and like snack on breakfast food as we like wrangle everything together to get the heck out of Dodge. So that was what we ended up doing. I will say debarkation was the worst debarkation I've ever experienced. It was awful. It was truly, truly awful, but I don't think it was Disney's fault. And I'm not just saying that because I'm Disney biased, but apparently because I had, been disconnected from the world for however long, there was some type of defense bill that was being signed that day on like the federal level, and it hadn't gotten signed yet that day. And because of that, there was, I guess, a bunch of like government employee furloughs happening. So when we finally got bags and like truly made it off the ship and got into the port, out of like the 17 or 18 terminals that they have for customs agents, there were 2 working for the entire ship. It was miserable. A lot of people in the cruise group were also saying that it was the same way with TSA when they got to the airport as well that same day. So I think it was all kind of related, not necessarily Disney's fault, but the one thing that we noticed was they usually call you, they drop off luggage tags the night before that have like green Tinkerbell, gray Daisy, whatever. And they call you by character and color to get off the ship. So we'll usually just like wait in the room, hang out until our color is called, and then out we go. One announcement happened and they called all the colors all at once. And we're like, what in the world? And it was early. It was like 7:30. They're like, we've been cleared and now all of these can leave. And it was everybody. And so that was just like a mass onslaught. It was, it came to a funnel, right, of trying to get out the door. And it took us 2 hours from the time we lined up to the time we got in our car. And then getting out of the port at Port Canaveral took another 45 minutes. It was a nightmare. I've never experienced anything like it. Like when we pulled out of Port Canaveral, I looked at the clock and was like, usually we are home by now, like at our house. This is mayhem. So that was not great, but I don't know that it was necessarily avoidable. Just not great to end the cruise on that note, but what are you going to do? It happens. A lot of people, a lot to do.
Well, just a couple more questions for you before we take us out of here. First off, did you have any notable cast interactions on this sailing that you wanted to highlight?
I will say, I wish I could remember her name. I definitely put her in my comment card, but the gal from the Shutters photo studio truly like rocked my world. She was so incredible. There is a guy at guest services He actually used to work for me, so I'm a little biased, but he like hooked it up for us and just making magic and like dropped off snacks in the room for the girls. His name is Tots. If you go on, he's from Japan and he's the sweetest angel ever. And overall, I feel like it's hard not to mention your wait staff because you just get so close to them and just like so attached, they become part of the furniture in terms of, what you're used to on the cruise ship. And then you leave and you get back that first night and they're not there to cut your kid's steak and it's devastating.
Might be a hard question for you to answer at this point since you usually book through cast discounts, but do you know what's next for you?
We are hoping the wish, and we will definitely be bringing more hands. We'll probably bring my parents. They love to cruise. They've never been on the Wish. They're dying to get on. But I ideally would like to get on the Wish by the end of the summer. So fingers crossed. But if it's not the Wish, I will say that my husband just continues to poke about transatlantic cruises.
Oh,
like really into it. So if there's one headed to or from Europe, which I'm certain there is, I just don't know off the top of my head, he's like, I would do it. Like 13 nights, heck yeah, like sign me up. So maybe we'll find ourselves on a transatlantic at some point. Who knows?
Yeah, do it while you can before, your daughters are in school.
Exactly.
It's easier now, for sure.
Yes.
Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on and sharing you and your family's experience aboard the Disney Fantasy. Before we go, where can our guests find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Lindsay DiPonzio. It's my first name and last name, LindsayDiponzio. That is my handle on Instagram and TikTok. Not super active on TikTok anymore, but got a lot of fun stuff on there if you want to go check it out nonetheless. And like Christy said at the beginning, I post mostly about Disney and family and just being a mom at this point, working mother, full-time working mother of 2. But I also have all of our infertility journey highlighted and sort of commemorated on there as well, including a link to my blog from our infertility journey in my bio. So if anybody's going through that, I talk a lot about that openly as well, and happy to be a resource.
Well, awesome. Thank you again so much. And hopefully you can make it onto the Wish this summer. And we would love to have you back to talk about that experience.
I would love that as well. Thank you all so much. This is always so fun.
That is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Lindsay for coming on and sharing her and her family's experience aboard the Disney Fantasy. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We would also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by joining our community by visiting patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.